Happy Friday, degenerates, and welcome to the undefeated post-weigh-in show. This one for UFC Vegas 75. We are taking one last look at these fighters, these athletes, as they step on the scales before they step into the cage. We're going to see if we can get any information, one final little read, maybe catch a vibe, who won the face-offs, and then we're going to put our bets in, and we're going to have one hell of a Saturday. They call this show the Undefeated for a reason. Never missed a read, never missed a bet. Not here, not today, not on this show, and it ain't starting now. Let's get straight on into it. This is Pub Sports Radio. Subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a like button, and let's run through these fights. First off, gotta let you know, we lost two of them. Zhalgas Zhumagulov has a new opponent. They are kicking that fight off till next week, so we're still going to get that one. It's just moving a week out, thankfully, but we did drop two from the overall card. So 12 fight card instead of 14 fight card. Can't complain too bad. It's still decent sized. First up, Modestas Bukauskas is coming in at 205, matching Zach Pauga, who also made the 205-pound limit. Modestas looked absolutely fantastic. He actually looked huge on the scales today. Big, solid flex. Zach Pauga looked really solid and healthy. No baby fat, no extra flab, no nothing like that. He actually looked really good making weight today. These guys sized up a whole lot better than I expected. I thought Modestas was going to have a decent height advantage here in this spot. He is slightly taller. He's slightly bigger. Not anything like I was expecting. I thought Modestas was going to have a decent size advantage here on this spot. So I've been looking at this one all week. I feel like it's an overcorrection. I feel like Modestas is getting way too much based on his last fight when he pulled off a huge upset. We cashed on that upset. I feel like it's back-to-back recency bias, right? He was a massive dog. We capitalized. Now he's a decent-sized favorite. I just don't know if I can trust my balls enough to pull the trigger on Zach Pauga. Now, you know what they say, you're always supposed to trust your balls. And the fact that Zach Pauga matches size for size Modestas decently well, I am tempted on that plus 160. I feel like this is going to be a close fight. I feel like it's going to be a tight fight. I just don't know if I can do it, man. Zach Pauga is so low volume. He does his best work in the clinch. We've seen that before, but I think Modestas will land the bigger shots from the outside. I'm probably just going to pass, but I kind of expect this to be a really boring, rough start to the card, if I'm being honest. Dan Argueta taking on Ronnie Lawrence. Both guys came in at 136 pounds today. Dan Argueta face way sucked out here today. He gave a huge scream when they called his weight. I think he had a bit of a tough cut. He was wearing the sunglasses, which, I'm automatically suspicious. I feel like you're hiding something, covering those cracked out eyeballs. So I think he had a bit of a rough cut getting down there. Now, Ronnie Lawrence, he's known for having tough weight cuts, and he actually did look a little bit rough on the scales today. Usually he struggles, but he made it. So I think we're okay. We're in the clear on Ronnie Lawrence here. Lawrence was a little bit taller, but he's also a little bit thicker. Dan is a monster. This guy is about twice as wide as Ronnie Lawrence is. Really good face-off. I'm looking forward to this fight. Similarly to the last fight, I've been kind of ping-ponging back and forth. I think I'm picking Ronnie Lawrence to go ahead and win this thing, but I'm not laying minus 190 on him. I think he'll have a speed advantage. I think he'll have an ever so slight striking advantage. And then the pace of Ronnie, I don't know if Dan is going to be able to keep up with that, but we've seen Ronnie taken down, so if Dan implements his own offensive grappling, he could steal this fight. I think we're going a full 15 minutes here. I think we're going to get a lot of wrestling. I'm pulling for Ronnie, but honestly, I have no idea, so I'm passing on that one as well. Teresa Bleda taking on Gabriela Fernandez up next. Teresa coming in at 125, Fernandez 126. Teresa looks strong up there today. Very confident, look good. She's big. Gabriela Fernandez, can't take anything away from her. She looked fine on the scales today as well. Looked like she's in good, solid shape. But Teresa's huge. When they face off, Teresa's absolutely massive. And now Gabriela is a girl that when she made her UFC debut, I talked about how large she is. That was kind of a big selling factor in the fact that she's got that big knockout power. She can crack. And she is dwarfed by Teresa Bleda. So I've got the under 2.5 here in this spot. I think I got plus 135 a little earlier in the week. It stayed right about there. I'm hoping we just get a finish. Whether it's Gabriela being able to go ahead and find the button on the feet where she might have the striking advantage, or Teresa just washing her on the ground, I'm just hoping somebody gets taken out of there. But Teresa Bleda's size, just by itself, is probably enough for me to have to go ahead and solidly lean over to the Bleda side of things. I really thought I was going to be sprinkling Gabriela Fernandez by knockout, but from what we've seen from her defensive grappling, I don't know if she's going to have much opportunity on the feet to be able to land that knockout punch, and she won't have the resistance grappling to tire Teresa Bleda out to get like a late TKO finish or anything like that. I kind of feel like Teresa Bleda rolls at this point. The size difference is making an impact here on this read. I thought Gabriela was going to match up a little bit better physically speaking. Denise Bondar taking on Carlos Hernandez. Bondar 126. Carlos came in at 125. Denise Bondar gave a big deep exhale up on the scale today. Face a bit worn out. I think he had a bit of a tough cut. He's okay. I'm not going to hold that too much against him, but it looks like he had a bit of a rough day. Ended up getting the job done. Carlos Hernandez, on the other hand, extremely relaxed. No issues. He's one of these string beanie muscle type dudes that it doesn't ever seem like he struggles with his weight cut. These guys size up really well. This was a good face-off. I did go ahead and end up siding with my co-host Uncle Wheezy on Monday, and I pulled the trigger on Carlos Hernandez. I got him at plus 110. This line's been ping-ponging back and forth all week, and at my initial run at this thing, I didn't put in the love and care that I usually do for the breakdowns. Had some family in town, so I leaned initially to Denise Bondar. But I wanted him at that plus money number, right? That was long gone by the time I got to it. He's been sitting minus 125, minus 135 all week. I'm not laying chalk on Bondar. So I held off. I did some more research. I looked into it. And I think Wheezy was right. Denise Bondar's record is extremely padded. And even though Hernandez has a bit of a tough time with defending takedowns, he's a solid grappler. He's got a lot of submission wins on his record. And his pace and his cardio, those are super high. When you get beat by Malcolm Gordon, fluke injury or not, in your UFC debut, I gotta automatically take you down a peg. I don't think much of Malcolm Gordon, and I don't think anybody UFC caliber really should be losing to the guy. So Denise Bondar getting physically bullied by that man, and then having his arms, snapped out of place, it was an injury. I can't hold it against him too much, but still, he was hurt on the feet by that guy before the scramble that caused the injury. So I am holding that against Denise Bondar in this spot. I'm gonna bet Carlos Hernandez, and I threw a half-unit shot at the sub prop at 6-1 on Carlos Hernandez. We've seen Bondar tapped out before. We saw him getting bullied physically by somebody like Malcolm Gordon. He's a primary grappler, so he's going to look to take this to the mat. And Carlos Hernandez actually has no problem scrambling and grappling with people. So I think there's going to be opportunities to open up a submission here. And at 6-1, that might be Carlos's best path to victory here. He's been going to decision with people in the UFC so far, but those have been high-pace caliber strikers, guys that want to stand on the feet and trade with him a whole bunch, not guys necessarily who are going to roll around with him on the mat. This provides that opportunity at a nice number. I'm taking my shot. We'll go 6-1, Carlos Hernandez by sub. Next up, Kyung Ho Kang is taking on Christian Quinones. Kang made 135.5. Quinones 135 on the dot. Kang came in absolutely shredded. I mean, you cannot expect anything different from this man at this stage of his career. He's well muscled. He's got so little body fat. I don't know how he makes this cut at this stage, but he looked very relaxed. Gave a huge flex. Very impressive. Christian Quinones, on the other hand, I'm still familiarizing myself with this guy. He's new to the UFC. He's new to the organization. His face looked a bit rough to me. Now, he's kind of a war-torn type of personality. He's all tatted up, so I'm not sure if maybe that's just his face. Like, we might have to just get used to him looking that way on Fridays when he weighs in. But it looked like he had a little bit of a rough cut to me. His eyes were sunken in and dark a little bit. His cheeks were popping out a little bit. So I am a little worried he had maybe a tough cut, but he actually was extremely smiley and relaxed at the face-offs, and he was messing around with Kyung Ho Kang, gave him a hug. Like, he acted fine. So I really think even if he did have a bit of a tough weight cut, he's okay. So it's either that he handles it well or that's just his face. So I'm not going to read too far into it, but I wanted to let you guys know so nobody hits me up in the comments like, did you not see Quinones? He looked terrible. No, he did. He did look terrible, but I think he's all right. This is a tough fight to call. It's tough when these guys make a splash off the Contender Series and then they're a little bit overvalued. I think a lot of people coming in on Kyung Ho Kang, it's driven that number down. Quinones is about a minus 135 favorite right now. That's more when I would be interested in buying in on him. When he's a bigger favorite earlier in the week, minus 165, minus 175, I'm not as interested in that over a vet who just makes every single fight he's in close. Kang has so many split decisions, it's not even funny. He's going to find the weakness in Quinones' game. He's going to make this fight competitive. He's going to hang in there and make it close. I'd be looking at the over 2.5 in this spot, but I do think Quinones is probably the right side. The lower this number gets, the more interested I am. I haven't pulled the trigger on a bet just yet, but if we get down to like pick'ems, I'm gonna have to dive in on the Quinones side of things. Next up, Alessandro Costa is taking on Jimmy Flick. Costa 126, Flick 125.5. Costa's a brick shithouse. This guy's got so much muscle on him. Jimmy Flick, he gave the skinny flex. He looks like the machinist up there. He's one of these really scrawny guys with a decent amount of muscle still somehow on him. But he didn't look great. His face is sucked out super bad. This is a weird situation where Costa, he's shorter, but he's much wider. Flick does have the slight height advantage here in this spot, but Costa got in close. He's feeling himself. He's confident. He's ready for this fight. I parlayed fight doesn't go the distance in this spot with Corey Anderson in Bellator. So I'm getting a nice minus 105 price tag on that. Corey's a decent-sized favorite. I do think he gets by Mr. Wonderful in Bellator today. So that's the parlay move for me. I just see violence here. If Flick's gonna win, it's gonna be some kind of a submission. I don't think he can hang with Costa's striking. We've seen him be a little fragile, take his ball and go home type of situation. So I'm going to go ahead and ride the violence here on this one, but it's parlayable. It's a price tag where you need to tie it up with something else, I think. Next up, Nicolas Dalby taking on Muslim Salikhov. Dalby came in 170.5, Salikhov 170 on the dot. Dalby just drives me nuts. Big flex, nice and relaxed, good smile on him, like he just always comes and does the thing and looks fine doing it. Muslim Salikhov, on the other hand, he looked rough. He came in, eyes half shut. These cuts are getting hard on him. The guy's turning 40 soon, like he's getting up there in age. He looks like that overnight old situation right now that we see with these fighters. They look young, they look fine, you can tell they're a little worn, and then boom, one day they weigh in and you're like, fuck, that guy turned 40. That's kind of what's happening here in this spot. I really think the cuts are getting to Muslim Salikhov, and he did not look good up there. Dalby's also a decent bit larger than his opponent in this spot. I have never, ever been able to pick a Nicolas Dalby fight right in my entire career. I'm not going to put that record on the line now and try and give you a winner on Saturday. I'm passing on this fight, not touching it. Now, my initial lean was the over 2.5, just kind of relying on the durability of these guys. That number has come down. This fight has taken some under money. It's a whole lot cheaper if you want that over 2.5. Muslim Salikhov still hits like a truck. Nicolas Dalby's a guy that's almost impossible to put away. And based off of that weigh-in, it would be Dalby or pass for me. Like, I'm picking Salikhov to win this fight. I think the bigger, more impactful shots are going to be the difference maker for him. But Dalby being bigger, Dalby being younger, Dalby being healthier stepping in the cage, I'm not going to talk you off a dog shot if you guys want to try and bet Nicolas Dalby here in this spot. I can't get there myself, but I get it. Next up, Nicolas Motta takes on Manuel Torres. Motta came in 155.5. Torres made 156. Nicolas Motta had a blank slate look on his face, which doesn't necessarily mean one thing or the other, but it looks like he packed some muscle on. He actually looked pretty good. Gave a solid flex up there. I was used to him being maybe a little bit skinnier. It looks like he's bulked up there working out with Chris Curtis. Manuel Torres, he looked like death on wheels, man. He was up there with his mouth hanging open, and as soon as they called his weight, big old relieved smile, big flex. He's okay. I was going to report that, he was a guy we want to fade because that weight cut was so bad, but his whole personality turned right around as soon as he made weight. He's good to go. Torres, obviously the larger guy. You know that coming in on this one. You're taking the smaller man with Nicolas Motta, but like I said, Motta does look like he added up some muscle, so he was not as undersized as I really expected him to be. I did take the shot on Nicolas Motta. I am in on the dog. I think he's the cleaner striker. I think he's got the speed advantage, and Torres is one of those guys that gasses out halfway through the first round, and he mostly finishes people in the first round. But I think if he gets extended, someone like Motta will be able to keep up a cleaner pace striking match deeper into the fight, and we don't know how Torres is going to react to that. So I took the dog shot here on this one. I do expect somebody to get knocked out flat. It could happen early, so this is a risky play, but I'll roll with the dog Nicolas Motta here. Lucas Almeida and Pat Sabatini. This is where shit gets crazy. Lucas came in at 145.5, Pat 145 on the dot. Lucas, very intense look on his face today. Gave a hard flex. He's another one of these skinny muscle type dudes. Pat Sabatini, on the other hand, threw one arm up in the air. He is jacked. Very confident look on this man's face. Almeida's massive. Like, he is so much taller than Pat Sabatini. Like, a full head taller than, these guys look like they belong in different weight classes. I was not expecting the size difference between these two men today. Pat Sabatini is so short. Now, you get that tall, lanky, skinny type going up against that short, tanky type. And usually that's a recipe for takedowns, right? Pat Sabatini, I don't think is going to have any problems getting under the hips or the legs of Lucas Almeida. And then being shorter like that, I've said this before, when you're grappling, if you don't have any experience grappling, I'm a tall-ass, lanky guy. These short, stocky, thick dudes, they're just like straight up stronger than you, and that height and that reach advantage, it gets so nullified when you're put on your back. It's hard to get your hooks back. It's hard to twist them into submissions. It's hard to catch an arm hanging out there because they only have about an inch or so to pull it back in to where they've got control of it. It's really hard to grapple with these physically strong, short, tanky style fighters, and that's what we've got here. I've been picking Pat Sabatini all week, but I simply do not like how much he hates getting touched on the chin. If you tap this guy, he goes panic mode, and we've seen him put out before. We've seen him struggle with guys before that are willing to strike and put the pressure on him. You know, a black belt turns into a brown belt the second you punch him in the face. That whole situation. I think Pat is going to take Lucas down, and whether he rides it out or he ties him up into a knot, either way, I think Pat's going to find a way to win the fight. But what I did here is I played the under 2.5 at minus 135. I think that's a better spot here because Lucas, if he's going to win this thing, it probably has to be by KO. I've got a hard time seeing this fight going 15 minutes with him getting tangled up with Pat on the ground and then still managing to get off enough damage on the feet without finishing Pat Sabatini. I think a lot of his win condition is going to be in the knockout. So I think one way or the other, one of these guys is going to end up finding the finish in their realm. I'll rock with the under in that spot. Picking Pat for the win, bet is the under. Next up, Christian Duncan taking on Armen Petrosyan. Both guys came in at 186. Duncan looked extremely relaxed. He's in great shape. No problems for him whatsoever. Petrosyan, he looked good on the scales today too. He's a big dude, no issues, gave a solid flex, and he gave me a little coy wink. You love to see it. Anytime I'm leaning to a fighter and they wink at you, it's like, all right, we got this. We're good. Decent size advantage for Armen. This is another one that kind of surprised me. You know, Christian Duncan has such a massive reach advantage here in this spot. I was not expecting him to be this much smaller physically than someone like Armen Petrosyan. You know, we talk about Petrosyan's inability to stop a takedown. His get-up game is fantastic, but he can't stuff takedowns. He's going to be the bigger bully-style man here in this part. And when they strike that reach advantage, it's going to be tough to keep somebody this much larger than you at bay. It's going to be very interesting to see how these two go at it on Saturday. I got Armen Petrosyan at plus 135. He's sitting about plus 125 right now on DraftKings, so that number may have come down ever so slightly, but I do like the Armen Petrosyan dog shot here. I've talked about this guy a lot. I think he's better than people are giving him credit for, and this is a spot where, yes, he's going to be at a height and reach advantage, but I think he's still going to be able to crash the pocket, get in close, and then when you pressure a kicker like Christian Leroy Duncan, I think that boxing range is going to pay dividends here for Armen Petrosyan. Hoping he can pull the upset off. Looks like on BetMGM you can still get plus 135 for Armen. So if you want that number, you can still head to a different book because I can talk about different books now. Head on over there and find a much better number for yourself. Co-main event, Joaquim Silva taking on Arman Tsarukyan. Both guys made 155.5. Both guys, absolute brick shit houses. My God, these guys are huge. Arman was rocking the sunglasses. He's another one we just got to forgive at this point. That's kind of his thing. He seems to do it every single time. Both guys, absolutely huge flexes. Silva was immediately talking when these guys got close to each other. I got to give all the props in the world to Joaquim Silva here for taking this fight, for feeling like he's got the goods, for even having the confidence to talk shit at the weigh-ins. Like, he believes in himself. He's going to come for this fight, and he's going to try to win it. So all props to Joaquim Silva. That said, I think that Arman Tsarukyan absolutely mauls him. This is a spot where I lean under 1.5, but it's all the way juiced at minus 160. If Arman decides to wrestle, it could take a little longer than that. If Silva cracks him with a shot and gets a little respect, it could take a little longer than that. So there's a couple different ways that this fight gets up and over that 1.5 round mark. So I'm not like selling out to buy that under 1.5, even though I am picking Arman and I do think he finishes. I think I'd rather look at like Arman by knockout, which is minus 135. I mean, he's a grappler, so that's tough, but you know, someone like Neto BJJ, I don't think you're tapping that guy. So I do think the KO is far more likely. Minus 135 on the knockout. I think I'd rather play that and have the second and the first rounds available to me personally. I don't have a bet yet on this fight, but I am picking Arman, obviously, as the 10-1 favorite to go ahead and get the win. Main event time, Jared Cannonier takes on Marvin Vettori. Both guys came in at 185.5. Jared is just 0% body fat. I still can't believe this guy. Dropping all the way down from heavyweight, carrying all that muscle. He's shredded and looks just sculpted out of freaking marble up there on the scales today. Marvin Vettori, very relaxed, gave a big old flex. Classic Marvin. He's not feeling any pressure here. This guy is very professional at doing what he does, and he's used to this weight cut at this point. Size advantage Marvin. This is one of those spots where I already bet Marvin Vettori, right? Like, I'm in on the Italian dream. So I'm not worried about this whatsoever. But he's larger, and that makes me feel a whole heck of a lot better about my bet. I did get in hard on Marvin Vettori. I believe I have 2.4 units at minus 120 to win 2 units here. I think the takedowns are going to be there for him. I think with him being the larger, the bully in the small cage here in the apex, he'll be able to get the clinch control, the cage wrestling that he likes to do. And I think even though Jared is going to land the bigger shots, even though he'll have those big flashy moments, we've seen Marvin walk straight through those and put people on their back anyway. I expect him to out-wrestle Cannonier, and we know Marvin's durable. We know he can go 15 minutes, so I'm banking on the youth here. Let's go Marvin Vettori. That's the read, folks. That is the undefeated post-weigh-in show for you. Now, we do have Bellator and we do have PFL coming up today. So if you happen to be watching this show before those kick off, I did take Anthony Pettis in Bellator. I like him to win. I already mentioned the parlay. Corey Anderson with Flick Costa does not go the distance. That's a Bellator UFC combo parlay. And then over in the PFL, I sprinkled Yoel Romero in round 3. That one's for the culture, baby. 40-1. Yoel Romero has 8 round 3 finishes over the course of his career. It's just kind of what he does. So at 40-1, I had to sprinkle. It's just that one's for fun. Like, don't take that one seriously. Please don't go crazy on that number. But we did go ahead and sprinkle that. And then over in PFL, I think the only bet I have right now is Karolina Sobek. I am fading Aspen Ladd one more time. You guys know I was so sold on Aspen Ladd. I thought when she signed over with the PFL, she was going to roll through that division and end up making them look silly. Then she was finally going to get her title shot. She was going to win $1 million, Aspen Ladd. Like, I really thought she was going to turn out. She's been nothing but disappointing over in PFL as much as she was in the UFC. And frankly, for a young fighter the way that she is, I feel like her confidence is shot. Like, she just has had such a rough go of it. You can't keep throwing her in there against fighters the top end caliber and expecting her to get the win. She's 1-3 in her last 4, and that one is frankly possibly a robbery split decision with Juliana Budd. She doesn't strike when she needs to. She's not aggressive when she needs to be. And she always fights close and loses decisions because she frankly does nothing. She's a stone out there. Now, her opponent is super young, 23 years old. So this could maybe be the spot that Aspen Ladd is supposed to win, right? Like, it absolutely could be. But this girl is big. She's got like a full head size on Aspen Ladd. She's tall, she's lanky, she's big, she's tough. And she's a grappler. So when Aspen Ladd does inevitably look to push her up against the cage or take her down, she's going to be well versed in that grappling area. She rolls for heel hooks. She's got pop in her punches. She's got a lot of KOs on her amateur record. Like, I actually think this is going to be a pretty even fight. And I'm getting a decent plus number. And I'm also taking a half unit shot, 10-1 by sub. Now, I know Aspen Ladd has never been submitted before, but like I said, I think her confidence is shot. If she goes out there against this girl, and yet again, she finds herself down 2-0 on the scorecards or something going into the third, and she's tired, and this big beefy chick is beating her in scrambles, there's a chance she just gives up and gets tapped here in this spot. We might be done with the Aspen Ladd experience, if I'm being honest. So I'm taking one last shot to go ahead and step on her neck, go ahead and fade her here in this spot. We'll see how it goes. Aspen may prove that you got to be one of the top upper echelon to beat her, and maybe she just gets ground out and loses by decision again. Maybe she whips this girl. Maybe she puts her on her back and TKOs her in the first. We've seen that from Aspen. We know that's inside of her. We know that's possible. I'm taking the dog shot. Lots of plus money spots this weekend, folks. It's feast or famine. Hopefully, if we end up, splitting, we'll do a slight profit type of thing with some of these dogs coming through here for us. But there's a ton of MMA action going on this weekend. Good luck on all of your degenerate action. Find me on social media for my official card. I've tweeted out all my official picks so far. If I have any more ads, I'll be throwing those out there. And hey, it's Father's Day weekend. So if you forgot, it is Father's Day weekend. I'm actually not going to be able to watch all of Bellator and PFL because my family's treating me to an early Father's Day here tonight. So I'm going to be catching up on the results a little bit late, but make sure you call your dad. Call that uncle that bailed you out on your way through college. Check in with your grandpa. If you're a dad, hey, congratulations. Happy Father's Day to you guys. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll catch you on Monday for next week's episode. Let's roll.